好，好，麻煩攝影師。Photographers, please, can you let the cameraman behind you take the video? Are you all done? Are you ready? Okay, it's about time. Can we now invite the officials to take their seat on stage? Welcome to the press conference on the proposed toll plans for road harbour crossings, RHCs. We have Mr. Lam Sai-hong, Secretary for Transport and Logistics, Ms. Rosanna Law, Commissioner for Transport, Mr. Edward Mack, Deputy Secretary for Transport and Logistics, and Mr. Leung Sai-ho, Assistant Commissioner for Transport Strategic Studies. Mr. Lam will say a few words, and then another official will do a PowerPoint presentation. Over to the Secretary. Good morning, members of the public and the media. In relation to the Road Tunnels Government Amendment Bill 2023, it was endorsed by the Chief Executive in Council yesterday. We'll be tabling the bill to the Legislative Council for first and second readings next Wednesday. Now, I will explain the proposed amendments to you. Now, we are proposing the amendment bill because the franchise of the Western Harbour Crossing will expire on the 1st of August. The government will take, this year, the government will take over the WHC, and then we'll take this opportunity to rationalize the tunnel tolls for the free road harbour crossings, RHCs. So that we could better manage traffic flow. Now, how are we going to do that? We proposed a two-step strategy. I explained the strategy to the Legislative Council in December last year, and we heard many invaluable views. And then at the beginning of this year, we were slowly resuming to normalcy. There's an increase in traffic flow and passenger volume, and so we are therefore proposing to implement the two-step strategy sooner. Now, on the 2nd of August, the government will take over the Western Harbour crossing. We will lower the tunnel toll by 20% for private cars from $75 to $60. As for the tunnel tolls of the Cross Harbour Tunnel and Eastern Harbour Crossing, CHT and EHC, we're going to increase the toll to $30. This is the so-called 63 fixed toll plan. So we're going to narrow the toll difference between the three tunnels so that more motorists will use the WHC. And then for taxis, there will be an all-day uniform toll of $25. So taxis won't detour to the more congested tunnels for a lower toll. For the tolls of other vehicle types, they will remain unchanged for now. We want to have this moderate toll difference, so we are able to maintain the traffic volume across the ROHCs. At the same time, we could alleviate congestion at the CHT and HC. After we implement the 633 fixed toll plan, it will help motorists to adjust to the new tolls, tunnel tolls for the three tunnels. And then we will then implement the another toll plan later to further alleviate congestions at different RXCs. We will implement the time-varying toll plan. From Monday to Saturday, there will be 3 time slots for charging tolls for private vehicles and motorcycles. And I will use the private vehicles as an example to tell you what the tolls will be like. For the peak time slot, it will start at 7:30 a.m. in the morning. And then the fee will the toll will be adjusted incrementally upwards to the peak toll, and then for the afternoon peak, again the tolls will be adjusted incrementally upwards from 6:40 to 7 p.m. That's the evening peak hour. So for the whole day, for 4 to 5 hours, private cars will be charged $60 for using the WHC and $40 for using the CHT and EHC. And then there will be a normal time slot, that is the daytime period between the two peak periods. That will be from 10:30 to 10:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. There will be a uniform toll of $30 for private vehicles for all tunnels. And then for the off-peak time slot, and then there will be the evening time slot, and then afterwards is the off-peak time slot after 7 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. the next morning. So I will call this as concessionary toll period because private cars will only need to pay $20 for using any road harbour crossings, and there's actually decrease of toll by some 25% or even or so. Now for Sunday, usually there is a less heavy traffic flow, so we propose a uniform toll of $25 for the normal time slot and $20 for the off-peak time slot. Now, we understand some people may like to drive on Sundays and take their family around to visit families and friends or go about, so I'm sure they will welcome this arrangement. In conclusion, after we implement the time-varying toll plan for 80% of time, the tolls for all 3 RXCs will have been reduced. The plan will also help to alleviate congestion during peak hours. For motorcycles, the toll will be 40% of that for private cars. As for other types of vehicles, such as buses, commercial vehicles, and so on, now the toll will be $50 across all commercial vehicle types for all the tunnels during the day, and for taxi will be $25. Now this will, so for commercial vehicles, actually, the tolls will be substantially decreased for the WHC. Now we plan to introduce the time-varying plan within this year and tying in with the implementation of the Hong Kong e-toll. I must stress that the new toll plans are not for us to charge more in tunnel tolls. You can see actually for WHC, the tolls will be decreased across the board. The highest level of reduction is some 75%. We believe it won't just be the general public who drive across the tunnels to benefit from this. Even for bus passengers, they will benefit because now during the peak hours, there is heavy congestion for the CHT and the HC. Traffic actually tails back some way. So even for those not crossing the harbour, they will be affected by the traffic congestion. So after the new toll plans, it will help to suppress congestion at specific tunnels during peak hours, and the general public will benefit, the economy will benefit as well. And apart from these toll plans, we will actively provide more park and ride facilities. We will talk to the MTRCL and will identify suitable car parks for providing park and ride facilities. We will also offer concessionary fares. The purpose is to encourage the public to use public transport to commute from the new territories or remote areas to the urban areas. And so for motorists who live in remote areas, they could drive to the park and ride facilities and take public transport to the urban areas, especially during peak hours. So that will help to alleviate congestion across on the RHCs. So we'll be actively providing such concessionary parking fees and fares. And we will also talk to the franchised bus operators to improve cross-harbour bus services as far as possible. We will be introducing more routes, so the public will take buses instead, and hopefully that will help to reduce congestion in areas near the RHCs. So I'll now hand over to my colleague of the Transport Department to give you more details. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I will give a PowerPoint presentation to elaborate on our new toll plan. There will be this 633 fixed toll plan, and it will be implemented upon Western Harbour Crossing takeover on the 2nd of August 2023, and it will take effect in all 3 tunnels. For private cars, the tolls will be reduced from $75 to $60, and for WHC and EHC, it will be lowered to $30. The differences between the tolls will be narrowed to alleviate traffic congestion in tunnels. For taxis, there will be an all-day uniform toll of $25. This can reduce detours and avoid overwhelming use of CHT and EHC for return trips. Tolls for other vehicle types will remain unchanged. For this time-varying toll plan, it will take effect no later than end of this year. Our proposal is to implement time-varying tolls for private cars and motorcycles. And during peak period, this can suppress and divert traffic flow of these 2 types of vehicles. In terms of charging periods and tolls, there will be 3 major charging periods from Monday to Saturday. They are peak period, normal period, and off-peak time slot or non-peak period. This design is based on the 633 fixed toll plan. Under this time-varying toll plan, peak period and normal period accounts for 80% of all the time. Private car tolls is $30 for normal time slot, and the fee for off-peak time slot will be $20. So for most of the time during the day, the toll will be dropped to $30 or $20. And for the rest of the time lost, there won't be any change in the toll fees. As for peak period, during 4 to 5 hours of a day, there will be the peak time slot. From 7 p.m., the toll will start to adjust downward. For peak period, the 633 toll plan will be in place. From Monday to Saturday, 10:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and also during the evening, there will be 2 3-hour periods that are the busiest times during the day. We want to shorten the peak period as much as possible. And so for WHC, there will be 2-hour peak periods during the day, and for EHC and CHT, there will be a 2.5 peak period. And for the transition charging arrangement from 7:30 a.m., the 3 tunnels will see the toll adjusting upward starting from 10:15 a.m., the toll will start to go downward. And from 7 p.m., the toll will start to go down again. And there will be a PowerPoint slide to elaborate the details later. For motorcycles, the arrangement will be similar to that of private cars, but the toll will be 40% of that for private cars. For Sunday and general holidays, the traffic flow will be small. We propose a uniform toll of $25 for private cars and motorcycles for normal time slot, and $20 for off-peak time slot. Again, the motorcycle and private car arrangement will be similar, but motorcycle tolls will be 40% of that for private cars. For other vehicle types, for taxis, it will follow the 633 fixed toll plan, that is $25 for the entire day. For other commercial vehicles, including goods vehicles and buses, we will adopt the efficiency first principle, and there will be a uniform toll of $50 for the entire day for all 3 tunnels. During the 3 charging periods, there will be different toll levels for different types of vehicles, so we are proposing a transition charging arrangement to ensure smooth interface between different charging periods. For private cars, during this period, there will be a $2 increase per 2 minutes for private cars. This is to prevent motorists to increase or decrease speed before the transition period. From 7:30 a.m., the toll will start to go up in a pace of $2 per 2 minutes. Even after you cross the harbor after 7:30 a.m., the toll will not be adjusted upward significantly. Instead, it will follow this incremental approach. When it reaches peak period, which is about 2 to 2.5 hours long, then a different toll arrangement will be implemented according to the time slot. For transition arrangement towards off-peak time slot, we'll adopt a similar approach. That is, there will be a $2 decrease per 2 minutes during the transition period. We expected that under this new plan, there will be a lower traffic flow to ease traffic congestion, and it will also reduce the impact on motorists. For motorists, while there will be a higher toll during peak period, they can also choose other types of transportation mode during peak period. 80% of the time we propose within the day is beyond the peak time slots. As for peak periods, we believe that we will be able to reduce traffic flow in tunnels for CHT and EHC. Also, the government will provide more park and ride facilities to encourage motorists to switch to public transport. For commercial vehicles, WHC tolls will be reduced substantially, and the new plan can avoid affecting drivers' schedule, and this is to respond to Trace request. Under the standardized fee arrangement, motorists can choose the tunnel based on their destinations, and this can reduce detouring and the traveling costs. For franchised buses, the overall journey time will be reduced to enhance the incentives for people to take cross-harbor bus routes, And this will also be an opportunity for us to add more bus routes. And we'll also explore the possibility of adding bus gates at RHCs to uphold public transport's priority. We hope to reduce bus operating costs with a view to moderating fare rise with toll saving. Under our new proposal, we want to introduce an adjustment mechanism and give Commissioner for Transport to make decisions on fine-tuning the peak time slots or charging periods. And the Commissioner can fine-tune the details based on the information listed on this slide. Regarding the schedule, we will activate legislative amendment procedure in March. If the procedures go smoothly, then the 633 toll plan will be implemented immediately in all 3 tunnels, and it is our target to implement time-varying tolls within this year.
Now the floor is open to questions. Please first identify the organization you represent before you ask questions. Please limit yourself to no more than 3 questions each, please. The gentleman at the back there. Good morning, I'm from TMHK. First, why do you have to implement the new toll plans in 2 stages? Now, when you conducted the consultation, when you went to the Legislative Council, members expressed the wish that there should be the time-varying toll plan from the very beginning. Only then could you effectively divert traffic. But now you're doing it in 2 stages, although you are moving forward the 2nd stage. Can you explain why that's the case? And second question, now for the 633 phase toll plan in the 1st stage, do you have any data for us so we can see how effective the diversion would be? Because the public are questioning that the 633 fixed toll plan is in effect just to increase the toll. It doesn't really achieve any diversion effect. Thank you for your questions. In December last year, we proposed a 2-stage strategy. On the 2nd of August this year, when we take over the Western Harbour Crossing WHC, there will be changes, first, say, to the management company, and then we'll also implement the e-toll at the WHC. So we want to play safe. And we believe the 2-stage strategy serves a purpose. We want to do it in an incremental manner. So, say on the 2nd of August, when we take over the WHC, and then when we have to implement the Hong Kong e-toll, it will be easier for motorists to adjust to the different changes. Because we want to pace the changes. We don't want them all to happen at the same time. As for the 633 fixed toll plan, when we consulted the Legislative Council in December last year on this plan, I said that when we take over the WHC, now the toll, we propose to decrease that from $75 to $60. If the toll is decreased just by $15, but there is no diversion of traffic among the free road harbour crossings, RHCs, then it's not going to work very well. And that's why we are proposing moderate adjustments of the tolls of CHT and EHC to $30. Perhaps I could invite my colleagues of the Transport Department to explain further about the 633 fixed toll plan. Yes, if I may add, under the 633 fixed toll plan, we expect that the traffic flow across the free RHCs would be similar to that now. But then, of course, there is a slight decrease of the WHC toll and an increase of the CHT and EHC toll. We hope there will be some minor diversion effect. But of course, our ultimate goal is to introduce the time-varying toll plan, and that will be a long-term solution to the traffic congestion problems. over there. I'm from Qingpo. Now, different the time varying toll plan. For the peak time slot, there will be increase of the toll. There is still a difference. WHC's toll will still be higher than the toll for CHT and HT by $20. So can there be a diversion effect because the toll for WHC is still higher during the peak time slot? So for the second stage, for the commercial vehicles like buses and trucks, there will be a uniform toll of $50. Does it mean that for the CHT and HC tolls, there will be an increase for these commercial vehicles? So is it not fair to them with this increase? Now, we have the 633 fixed toll plan as an interim plan. And during peak hours, we want to be more effective in suppressing traffic flow, especially during the busiest hours. Now, if we increase the toll of 6G and HG to $40, that will be far more effective. And that will be able to suppress traffic flow during the busiest hours. Another point is outside of the peak time slot, during the normal time slot, that is in between the two peak time slots, we propose a toll of $30. This will help to change commuting behavior. For example, especially during the morning peak hours, maybe there are some who may switch to public transport, but there are others who still prefer to drive. But then at least they may consider whether they'll have breakfast at home or whether they'll have breakfast near their place of work in the urban areas. So that means it's a matter of whether they will cross the tunnel earlier or later. If they do it earlier, probably it's going to save them tolls. And so we try to change driving and commuting behaviors. And that's why we're proposing the tolls of $60 and $40. Sorry, I forgot your second question. There's going to be uniform toll for large, heavy vehicles. Is it not fair to them? Now, for commercial vehicles, I'll ask my colleague at the Transport Department to explain that further. For commercial vehicles, the existing tolls for the WHC and the other two harbour crossings are high, especially for WHC. The toll is really high. That's why commercial vehicles usually use the CHT, and so you see many heavy vehicles using the CHT, and it is not desirable. So as we considered the data and the tolls for CHT and HG, well, actually they've not been increased for several decades. And also we want to look at the average toll for the free road harbour crossings. For commercial vehicles, we find that the average toll is high currently. For example, for heavy vehicles, it's over $90 for WHC, and now we are proposing a uniform toll of $50. It's because we've heard the views of commercial drivers and sectors. Now, if there is a uniform toll at a reasonable level across the free RHCs, in future, the commercial vehicle drivers will consider only their starting point at the destinations. They don't have to consider detouring to a tunnel that charges less. So that means if there are commercial vehicles on the eastern part of the territory, they choose tunnels on the eastern part instead of detouring to the other tunnels. This will help to alleviate congestion, and that's why if we have a uniform toll for the whole day for commercial vehicles, then these drivers won't have to consider, they may not have to decide whether they will cross the tunnels during peak hours or non-peak hours, and it will help to alleviate traffic congestion as a whole. We believe this will benefit the transportation sector ultimately. I'm from TVB. Well, Secretary, you said before you will only implement the time-varying toll plan a year after the 633 fixed toll plan. So what factors have you considered for you to move forward the second stage? As for the time-varying toll, if you take private vehicles as an example, during the peak time slot, WHG will still have a higher toll than that for CHG and EHC. So will it be the case then drivers will still choose to use a tunnel with a lower toll during peak hours? Now, in December last year, we introduced a two-stage plan. And then in January this year, the cross-boundary travel was resumed. And we see that there's been increase in passenger volume and traffic flow since then. So we have to consider, therefore, we should compress the timetable for the two-stage plans. And also, in December, when we consulted the Legislative Council, we heard members' views. They asked why is it that we won't move forward the second stage earlier. They believe the time-varying toll plan will help to relieve traffic congestion across the tunnels during peak hours. And now we believe we have the right condition for us to move forward the second stage. So that's why we're going to implement the second stage within this year. For the free road harbour crossings, now, there are two peak periods, and the toll for the WHC will be higher compared to that of the two tunnels. Well, WHC is unique in a way because there are cars coming from the north, New Territories Northeast, or coming from the airport. They will use the WHC as the primary route. And then for the New Territories Northeast, we're talking about a population of some 3 million people. So we have done some studies, actually. If we set the toll of WHG at the same level as that for CHG and EHG during peak hours, so we have to set the toll at a very high level for all three crossings. But if we reduce the toll level to, say, $40 for WHC, then the free harbour crossings won't be able to cope with the traffic flow during peak hours. That's why we believe it is right or appropriate to set the toll of the WHC at a higher level than that of 6G and HG during peak hours. Any English questions, please? The one in green, please.
From the South China Morning Post. What makes 633 arrangement appealing to drivers when the Western Tunnel will be still charging way higher than the other two during the peak hours? And will Western Tunnel be able to throughput all the vehicles from the Cross Harbour Tunnel and Eastern Tunnel during the non-peak hour? Do you have any estimation? And about the transition charging arrangement, the toll will be increased $2 every 2 minutes. Are you worried about the driver would rush towards the time that charge cheaper and intensify the traffic congestions? Thank you.
Under because the 633 scheme, the gap, the toll gap between the Central Harbour Crossing and the Western Harbour Crossing has been reduced from the existing 55% to 20%, to 20, from the existing $55 to $20, to $30. So this will enable motorists traveling via they originally planned to travel the Harbour Crossing, Central Harbour Crossing or Eastern Harbour Crossing. They will shift. They will have more incentive to shift to the Western Harbour Crossing. That will help redistributing the traffic flow among the 3 tunnels. For the transitional gap that we talk about, we have set a level of $2 per 2 minutes. So this will alleviate the rush for because when the toll level is rising, and if the toll gap is big, motorists will try to travel faster. Or if the toll level is lower, then they may have the incentive of lowering the car speed to wait for a lower fare level. So that is why we try to put the transitional steps so that to discourage motorists from doing this kind of absurd things. So this is the incentive, or this is the merit of introducing transitional charging.
藍色先生。
係你好友善嘅。
I'm from cable TV. For the 3 RHCs, the peak period will end at 10:15 a.m. How many motorists will wait after 10:15 a.m. to use the tunnels? Why do you not impose a lower toll just at WHC? Also, you're adopting an incremental approach that is $2 increase per 2 minutes to avoid motorists to enhance or lower speeds. How effective do you think the transition charging arrangement will be? These two are about the technical parts of the plan. I will ask my colleagues from the TD to respond. Perhaps I'll respond to the $2 arrangement first. When you cross a cross-harbor tunnel, it takes about 2 minutes if there is no traffic congestion and if you use the statutory speed limit. With this new arrangement, it will be implemented during peak period. In Hong Kong, you will notice that at all times there will be vehicles in a tunnel, but we want to make sure that there will be smooth traffic flow. If you increase or decrease dramatically the speed, it won't be allowed. During the preliminary implementation of the arrangement, we'll talk to the police and management company to ensure that motorists won't deliberately increase or decrease their speeds as it will be dangerous. So we want to allow enough time for people to adapt to the new arrangement before we implement the new plan. For $2 increase per 2 minutes, we tried to strike a balance. If it is over $2 increase or decrease per 2 minutes, it may really give people the incentive to increase their speed ahead of toll change. As for your first question regarding 10:15 a.m., we have looked at our travel characteristic survey outcome. If there is a toll adjustment level that is $40 for CHT, we expect that there will be a change in commuters' traveling behavior. That's why we set it at 10:15 a.m. Some people may be able to go to work during flexible working hours, so they may wait until later to cross the harbor. If you're willing to cross the harbor before 7:30 a.m., that is during the concessionary period, we hope that this can really change commuters' behavior. If you have to travel during peak period, we encourage you to switch to public transport or use the park and ride facilities, and will enhance the relevant services. Next question. I'm from AM 730. Apart from the toll difference between the 3 RHCS, the Lion Rock tunnels and the Tay Karn tunnels, there is also a toll difference. However, There's been no mention recently in adjusting the toll level of these two other tunnels. Will you take into consideration the effect of implementing this new plan to adjust the toll level of the other tunnels? Also, we see that in the future, the Commissioner for Transport will have the power to fine-tune the toll levels and make the adjustment once every 6 months. Are you going to take into consideration the situation after implementing the new plan when you decide whether to make the adjustments? Also, do you have a KPIs regarding the journey time to be shortened after the implementation of the new plan? I will invite Commissioner for Transport to respond to your questions about minor adjustments. For Lion Rock Tunnel or Sha Tin Tunnel, well, we're discussing the 3 major RHCs today. We want to first handle the toll plan for these 3 RHCs and implement the time-varying tolls and take stock of the experience first, and then we'll make assessment of the implementation of the new plan. Afterwards, we will decide what we're going to do next step regarding toll levels for Sha Tin tunnels. Commissioner for Transport, please. Thank you. We'll adopt a strict approach when we decide whether to make minor adjustments. There is a clear legal framework that I have to take into account when I make the decision. I have to take into consideration the traffic flow and the capacity of the tunnels. That is when the demand exceeds the capacity. And only under this condition that I can make the adjustment. As mentioned in the opening remarks of the Secretary, under this new plan, well, there are currently traffic congestions during peak periods, and we want to, through this new plan, address the problem so that congestion can be alleviated, and we will closely monitor the situation at the entrances of the tunnels. If necessary, when we have to make adjustments on toll levels, we can only make minor adjustments. But I have to stress that it doesn't mean that there will be a toll level increase once every 6 months. And through this mechanism, I can even consider lowering the toll level if the traffic flow is desirable. And the details are set out in the law. As you can see from the slide, every time we can only recommend a maximum of $3 plus or minus $3 toll change, and we can only implement the toll level change with the endorsement of the Legislative Council. We don't have to make legislative amendments every time, but we will inform the public before we make the minor adjustments.
Traveling time, anything to add to that? Well, for traveling time or journey time, we are looking at the length of the traffic queue. In the morning, you can see that there is a long tailback of traffic, especially across the 60. There are different entrance points, and then for about 7 of the entry points, there is long traffic queue, and we hope to shorten that by 1 to 1.5 kilometers for the 60, and for the HC, we'd also like to see a shortening of the queue. Because there are fewer entry points to the HC, we hope to shorten the queue by about 0.5 kilometers. As for the journey time, it really depends, say, whether there is congestion after people cross the tunnel. So that means it depends on the traffic condition nearby. So we will watch that, and we'll set indicators. Thank you. Over there at the back, I'm from Hong Kong 01. Good morning. Now, you say you're not worried that drivers will pick up speed all of a sudden, but then there are examples in Singapore. Drivers try to wait for the non-peak hours, so they drive slowly, deliberately. So have you considered situation that is drivers drive very slowly as they approach the tunnels so that they could wait for the non-peak tolls to kick in? Now, you say you want to alleviate congestion, but actually could you add to congestion in such cases? Now, as for taxis, there's going to be uniform toll of $25, but for non-peak off-peak time slot for private vehicles, the toll will only be $20. So what's the rationale behind that? Are you encouraging the public not to take a taxi across the harbour or what? And do you have specific diversion effect that is after the plan is implemented? How much diversion effect can you achieve? Perhaps I'll ask my colleagues to answer the questions. Thank you. Yeah, for your first question, the increase of toll by $2 every 2 minutes, you mentioned the Singaporean experience. I had similar experience myself. In my own experience, drivers were moving towards some toll area, and before they wait a bit as they approach a tunnel for the fare to come down. Now, here we're talking about road harbour crossings where cars travel at a higher speed. And so people will have to get into the tunnel area very soon. It is not possible for them to wait somewhere before they cross the tunnel without causing congestion. And will people wait for 2 minutes just because they want to save $2? And that's why we're proposing the $2 increase every 2 minutes. And that's exactly the idea why we're only proposing $2 increase every 2 minutes. And then and at the beginning of the implementation of the time-varying toll plan, we'll ask tunnel operators to closely watch the driving behavior of motorists. We'll see if there are other measures that could help people to adapt better to the new plan. As for taxis, we're proposing a uniform toll of $25 per trip. Well, when we first floated the 633 fixed toll plan, the sector thought the plan was good because in future, taxi drivers won't have to consider the different toll differences or especially for the toll differences for return trip, and then they have to decide to take a particular tunnel. Taxi drivers may choose the 6T now because the toll is lower, but then because of that, probably some taxi drivers refuse to take passengers across the harbour during peak hours. And now there is no incentive to use the WHC. So because of the toll difference, there is more detour, and so there are fewer passengers taking the taxi across WHC. In future, there won't be any need for dispute. As long as you take the tunnel, the toll is $25 for one trip, and so for the return trip, that means it's $50 in total. And so there's no need for dispute, and then passengers won't have to ask taxi drivers to drive faster or slower or use a particular tunnel. So that's the merits of this new toll for taxis. At the back, the one in white, please.
Questions from TMHK. So the first question is on the pace of the changes. So do you think that it's overcomplicated things to have people adjust to the 633 plan first for less than 4 months, then to the time varying plan just a few months later? So the second question is, what do you think about the differences in tolls at the harbour tunnels proposed? Do you think that is already enough to divert the traffic? And do the department have any scientific data to back up that claim? Thank you.
For the second question, I will ask TT colleagues to respond. For the first one, I have responded earlier that because on the 2nd of August, we'll recover the Western Harbour crossing from the franchisee back to government. So on that date, there will be a change of the management company. And also, we need to execute or implement the e-toll. So there are a lot of changes to happen for this tunnel. So that is why we would consider that it would be more appropriate to allow more time for to allow motorists to adapt to such changes. So that is why we first implement the 633 scheme and then allow some time to implement the e-toll and finally switch to the time varying toll scheme. So this is the approach that we consider more prudent and to allow more time for motorists to adapt. For the second question, I will ask colleagues to respond.
Thank you, Minister. On whether the proposal is enough to divert traffic and on what scientific basis did we come up this proposal, we actually considered three elements. The first is the comprehensive transport model that the Transport Department has always been maintaining and updating. We use all our available traffic data and queue length and also speed of the vehicles to calculate and to predict the behavior of motorists and road users. This is the first one. The second one is we just completed a comprehensive travel characteristics studies, and we have interviewed 35,000 households on their driving behavior and their behavior of using public and private transportation. And we also got information and opinion from them on what sort of toll level would be effective in affecting their driving behavior and their behavior of using public transportation. The third one is the experience, the actual on-ground experience of our motorists, the train, and also passengers. And in the consultation period just a few months ago, we've been talking to extensive amount of stakeholders, including the trade. And these are their actual on-ground first-hand experience. So based on these three aspects, we came up with the proposal that we present to everyone today. And also, you asked about the actual outcome or effect. As we said just now, driving time is probably difficult to predict because it's also depend on the road situation after using the tunnel to the other side of the harbour. However, we can see quite extensive queues. For example, on the Kowloon side for for Central Harbour Crossing at the Gascoigne Road flyover. For these long-standing pink spots, I think we are now expecting a 1 to 1.5 kilometer reduction of queue length, and we will pay close attention to available data and provide more.
好，今日記者會到呢度結束。
That's the end of the press conference. Thank you very much.